It takes more than guts to be a gangster. It takes good ideas, and I hope these ideas help you. Hey, what is going on, guys? This is Gangster KT, and have a very special guest today, joining me for mainly a conversation about gold optimization, but also a lot of different things. Please welcome Boilon today. Boilon, how you doing?
Hey everybody, I'm actually waving, but you can't see me, but I am. And having some, well, I guess it's me having some video issues because I don't use a real camera. So I couldn't get it to work on here. But I'm here anyways, and we'll be talking about some fun stuff.
Yeah, really glad to have you. Thanks for doing this, Boilon. Been a fan of your channel for years, and excited to talk to you about this. I think there's a lot of detail in analytics and gold optimization, and out of any of the CCs I've watched and just the community, I think you have the best mind for this. You understand gold income the best. You track it more than anyone else. So just really excited to talk about this with you. And I'll say, additionally, this timing is kind of interesting. There's been some recent changes, and maybe there's an elephant in the room that we'll talk about here on this video as well. So we will see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So with that said, let's get into our discussion here. We're going to start out with just kind of a few fun questions to get to know Boilon a little more. So first off, and I have some options here. Try and make this easier for you, bud. So where did the name Boilon come from? Is it a last name?
Nope.
You like to bring the heat? Is there someone special in your life that maybe have boils at one point? Or
I
is
hope
it
not. No,
else?
I hope not. It was a name that I used in. I've been playing MMOs for a very long time. Probably about 2 decades. And it's a username that I had for my character in EverQuest a long time ago. Wow. EverQuest 1. This was like back in probably 1999, 2000. So it's been quite some time. And then I just kind of carried that over through every game that I played. And to be honest, I think the name came out of a random name generator because I was pretty young back then. I couldn't think of names. And a lot of games have these random name generators. And I think it came on that. And then ever since then, I just carried it forward on every game that I played. And that's just how it happened. EverQuest 1, that was my first MMO that I ever played.
Interesting. And it works out well with your let's boil this down, right? If that was random, well played.
It was kind of random, yeah.
All right. Well, good to know that. So moving on, what's one thing that you'd really want maybe the community to know about you? And Boilon, I'd say bragging is encouraged because you probably won't do that on your own. But tell us something cool about yourself.
About myself personally? Or me,
personally,
the channel?
Or with gaming? Or your channel, or anything you want to let people know about you.
Well, that's a tough one because I think being Canadian, that's not something we normally would do. So that's being put on the spot for that a little bit. I think I could have prepared this a little bit better, but I don't know. I guess that I love playing with numbers. And so for Marvel Strike Force, that really helps. I think there's a lot of good stuff in this game that kind of lends itself to this as well. I played a lot of mobile games as well that don't really require this kind of thinking, I guess, in some aspects. So it's good, I guess, both for me, for my channel as well, to have this kind of content that I could do with numbers and things. And there's not a ton of people doing it. So that's always good, I guess, for me. That was not really a brag, but that's the best I got, I think. Numbers.
Numbers and math. I think that's fair. Yeah. That's one thing I tell my wife. This game is just a big math puzzle to me. I maybe don't get the same enjoyment out of the combat. It's just deliberately trying to min-max and the number side of it, and that comes through in your content, man. So that makes sense. But work on bragging on yourself a little bit there. All right. So this is a personal question for me, but in Boilon's opinion, what makes someone a gangster?
Honestly, when I think of that word, which is not commonly used up in Canada, I think, or at least not where I am, I think of I don't know, those movies like New York, old New York City, kind of New York City gangster. That's what I think, or Italian mob kind of thing. What makes someone a gangster? I don't know. I mean, I think you might know a little bit more than I do about this one, but that's a tough one for me too.
Mine's a costume, man.
I do see the Spider-Man. Is Spider-Man Noir a gangster? I guess he is. You're making him one.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's got that appearance with the hat.
Isn't he a detective though? So
it does have a little bit of detective, but actually was thinking like Dick Tracy, like he's not technically a gangster. It's the villains in the movie that are,
it's that look that like I don't know if you played the game LA Noire, but like that sort of like graphic style. It's like was it from the 60s or the 40s or like I don't know, that kind of style, the dress style.
Yeah. Yep. I think around then. Don't know exactly when, but yeah, the
I'm not
mob.
that old, but I'm just from movies and things that I've seen.
All right. Well, good answer, man. Italian Mob, Sopranos. I love using all those guys in my graphics. So, just a fun question here before we maybe get to the elephant in the room. Would you rather hang with the Golden Girls, party with the Real Housewives, schlump it in Schitt's Creek, or solve a murder with Jessica Fletcher?
I'm not entirely sure who Jessica is. That's not Jessica Jones, right? So I don't know who Jessica Fletcher is actually. But I would have to take the Schitt's Creek option probably because it's a great show. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch that. Canadian as well. One of the best shows I've watched in some time. It's hilarious.
Couldn't agree more. It is absolutely fantastic. So Jessica Fletcher, not that anyone's going to care about this, but is the main character in the show Murder, She Wrote. I don't know if you've heard of that or not.
I have heard of it. I don't know if I'm maybe not old enough to really have seen that much. I'm not that old, so maybe I missed that one.
Yeah, Schitt's Creek's great. If you said party with Real Housewives, we were going to have to end this call. So I'm very glad that wasn't.
I can't say how many that I've seen, although there is a Real Housewives of Vancouver version.
No, thank you. I don't think they're good anywhere. So. All right, so getting into something and want to give you the platform here, Bud. Say as much or as little as you want. But the question, how do you feel about the release of event tables via Envoy versus the blog, and then that being reverted? And I would encourage you to be very indie in your response.
So it was, I mean, I've heard, especially over the last few days, I have heard a lot of the stories, the versions of how this happened and how it got turned around and things like that. It was a poor choice that I think wasn't thought very well of at the time, and that's why it was backtracked. That being said, what my understanding is that it was intended to be. It could have been all of the envoys or specific envoys per week. I'm not sure what the intent was on that because obviously it's not going through now. But it just didn't sit right with me, and it didn't sit right with the rest of the community, I think, as well, because it's not just me that relies on these tables. There's a lot of people, maybe just people individually like doing their own math, or maybe they track it for their alliance. Lots of other people that aren't creators who use this kind of information. And so there's a lot of people that would have missed out, not to mention that they're, because every blog post, there's an in-game mail directing you to the blog, which then people can look at. There's a lot of people who play this game who don't actually watch YouTube, right? There's 200,000 plus players, and I don't, our top creator, mobile gamer, his videos are like 10K-ish views. So clearly there's still a ton of players who don't watch YouTube, but still could take advantage of this information. And so to have it removed was jank, for lack of better words.
Yeah, couldn't agree, and I'll tell you, I think in your videos, you've really taken the high road. It's been impressive to see, and I think it's cool how much the community has rallied around this point, and really the point holistically. But I'll say specifically for you, and I think you're right. Many others have been impacted. I think Run 7's done a really good job of covering how this impacted some smaller content creators. But at the end of the day, you're the event guy, you're the math guy. And so I was glad to see everyone supporting you, and that was cool. And what a shame that this happened. Glad they reverted.
My name was brought up across a handful of streams over the weekend and on Friday and things like that. I think the term indie, I believe, is actually stems from Run 7. I heard him use that term.
Okay.
So I think it's just being ran with now, or Archangel maybe ran with it. And so originally it was designed for up and coming content creators, that kind of terminology, I suppose. And then it's funny though, I guess, because technically I fall under that now, or at least I would have fallen under that announcement too. But there's now, I don't know what's going to happen, because the latest news is that mobile gamers outside of the Envoy program, I don't think he's decided what he's going to do regarding in or out. I'm not in it. Tana's not in it anymore, and so there is this divide, sort of creators who are in and who are not. and people who are successful creators as well that aren't in for whatever reason. We all have our different reasons for that, but I'm concerned that it's going to create a fracture both within the envoys and the community writ large. That there's going to be this group of us who are not envoys and those of us who are. This is very reminiscent of like 2 years ago or so, where there was the non-void group. You might have heard of this before, that existed maybe about 1.5 2 years ago. And I don't want that to be this, I don't want it to be them and us, kind of like a division. And I hope that's not what happens. But obviously there's going to be some issues here with transparency, I guess.
Yeah.
And perception.
Well, and hopefully that's an interesting point. Hopefully this getting reverted so quickly kind of keeps them from trying to go the same direction with anything else, and kind of the outpouring of support against this. I'll say I almost feel that indie comment though. Like, I'm an indie creator, right? I have 370 followers. Like, that's fine. I was shocked when I saw that. And if it's a term in the industry, that's fine. But like, I almost felt that was just like a final dig at people, them using that term, and was really surprised by it, even though I do think it applies to me. So
yeah, I mean, you hear about it for everything else, right? Like indie game, indie film director, like that. But it feels kind of weird to also equate it to like indie content creator, which I guess is a thing. I guess you can call it that, but it's just I don't think anyone says that really. I've never heard that.
Yeah, and it's normally used to mean like newer, like you said, and they used it to mean anyone that's not an envoy. So I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Just felt like still kind of a little shot, even in their reversion there. So.
To be fair, there's also envoys that I would dub as indie. So there's quite a few people in the envoy program these days, and I have no hard feelings against any of them. But as far as a numbers perspective in terms of subscriber count or whatever, there's quite a variation in there that some perhaps you could dub as indie as well. So take that for what it is.
Makes sense. And won't beat a dead horse on this, but one last question, if you don't mind. Did you take this personally at all? Like, did you look at this as maybe a shot against you, knowing you kind of, even though others are doing it, you're kind of the biggest event and math guy that most people rely on?
I think I had a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to seeing the news because I wasn't expecting it either, because on Friday, I do my Friday blog reading, and it wasn't until the last couple of minutes at the end of the video when I got to the bottom of the page and I was like, what? Okay, like my mouth dropped a little bit because I wasn't expecting that. It's not at the top, right, where they do the outline or whatever. And so I wasn't expecting that. And at the end of the video, I was like, oh, wow. And actually, it really upset me. Because that, it is something that I rely on doing for my channel, at least twice a week. So I have the blog reading on Friday, and then usually there's at least 2 events to cover every week. So almost half of my channel then uses the blog in that case. Now, I still could have done this stuff anyways, because it shows up in game, right? And I could do the math that way once it shows up in game. But it does create a disparity or unfairness, I suppose, if other people get selective access to something, especially because we're used to having it for the public. Right. And so going from that to privatization, or whatever you want to call it, if that's how you want to look at it, that it's not fair, I think. Yeah. And so at first I did think it was a shot at me. And then I didn't know about the envoy call that existed, which you may have heard of as well, that happened regarding conversation about this. Some envoys were there, some envoys were not. But I didn't know about this, right? So without knowing that, it kind of did feel like I didn't know everything that happened, but it did, for reasons I don't want to get too into, it did feel a little bit like a shot at, maybe not just me, but just people like me or people who do stuff like I do, I suppose, as well.
Yeah. I think it'd be hard not to take it that way. And again, we'll say for my 2 cents, you handled it very well and took the high road here. So
I kind of just took the weekend off. Honestly, I was out drinking on Saturday, and I was just like, and I didn't actually expect it to get reversed by the end of Friday night. Yeah. Because I kind of just turned off. I did my blog reading, and I kind of like was online for a couple of hours, and then after that, and then I just kind of turned off, and then I just kind of disconnected from the internet for like a day. And then, I'm glad that it got turned around, of course. But I was also surprised that they did that quickly.
Yeah, me too. And was great to see again. Hope that's just a signal that those kind of directions are over.
Yeah.
So
Well, we'll see. There's always
yeah,
chances for them.
it's Scopely. Time will
Yeah.
tell. But appreciate your candor there, man. I think something people probably are really curious what you had to say about that. So thanks for
Yeah.
talking
No,
through
no
it.
worries.
All right, so getting back into the game, if you had all of these four characters, I'd say maybe the four best at level 90, and you could only take 1 to 95, which one would you prioritize? Apocalypse, Quicksilver, Black Cat, or Kang?
Is this big apocalypse or not big apocalypse?
That very fair question. We'll say big apocalypse.
Probably apocalypse.
Okay.
And then Black Cat. I don't know if I'm ranking them, but yeah, I'd probably say Black Cat after that. And then ooh, tough one. Kang, maybe. And then Quicksilver.
Yeah.
I don't know if my Quicksilver is 95, but he is 90. So I do have 95 Apocalypse, and then I do have 95 Black Cat now. And Kang, because he's in my Dark Dimension 16. So Quicksilver's the
You're
only
all
one that's
over
not
it.
95.
Yeah, I'll say depending on the day, what mode I played, I might have a different answer for this question. They're all amazing, right? But
Yeah.
I think I'd agree overall. Big Boy Apocalypse probably is the best character in the game still.
Yeah, I just recently got Apocalypse actually just like a week or so ago to the big boy status, and wow, what a difference does that make?
Being able to open with that all is
Yeah.
life changing in Arena. There's no question. So, all right, is Quicksilver underrated? And your choices are yes, most definitely. Can't rate him high enough, or he sucks.
I think, so when he first came out, a lot of people didn't really have a good opinion of him. And that's interesting because I think it's changed it a little bit. But I have to tell everyone that, Quicksilver is the quickest 7-star character that you can get ever. I have him as 7-star now. And as a new character, normally because you have to wait for farmability and all of that, because he was in Cosmic Crucible, I can't believe that I have him at 7-star in less than 4 months. So that means his stat growths are good because you can get him that high. So I would probably say can't rate most definitely. No, that's weird. You have some. I wish there was a different option in here. I think he's a good character. He's a good character and he's worth building.
Boiling this, I messed up, man. I've been so worried about the tech. This was supposed to say underrated. I am obsessed.
I feel
with
like yes and most
right
definitely
now.
are like the same thing. So
All
there should
four
have
of
been a
these were
different
the
box.
same. It was supposed to say underrated. And we're
Okay.
saying like, yes, he's underrated. Most definitely, you can't rate him high enough. So
I was looking at the boxes. I'm like, wait a minute.
But it sounds like we both agree he's an amazing character. I have short term obsessions. Nakia was one of mine for a while, and he is my current one. Like I think Apocalypse is probably better, like we talked about, but I cannot praise Quicksilver enough. I'm obsessed with him right now. So I messed this question up, but
I think he's someone that you're going to see used later on as well. That he's going to come back in a variety of different ways with different teams or hybrid teams or whatever, and he'll have use that way. And like I said, he's fairly easy to 7-star because they gave you're getting quite a bit of weekly shards out of Cosmic Crucible. It's a lot actually.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take very long to get him there. The only issue, of course, is the dark promotion credits. As more characters come out that use that, then you have to start thinking about whether or not you want to do that. I took him to 4 red. I haven't done 5 because I feel it's the 5th is expensive. I think it's like 2,600 or something. And with the rate that we get legendaries out of the trials, I need to make sure I have enough to do that. So I haven't been able to do that 5th one, but if I could, I would.
No, it makes sense. And his 5th is a lot more expensive than what like the Horseman or what Black Cat was.
It's twice as much actually, and I don't understand why.
Yeah.
So the scaling is a bit odd, and they maybe want to kind of think about that a little bit. I don't know if maybe it's intentional, but it just I don't understand why it's like so much more than like legendary characters.
Well, and his 7th is only 4,000, so it's actually 500 less than what most of the Horseman characters were.
Yeah, so for the amount of dark promos that you're spending to get like that 5th one, it just doesn't seem like good value compared to all the other things you can do with it. But I would love to have it if I could, if they wanted to lower it a little bit.
Come on, Scopely.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to go through just some fun questions there. But let's get into the meat of what we want to talk about. And again, where I think you really separate yourself and have a lot of good feedback on this in your content. So I'll kind of posture this here and then want to hear your thoughts. So we're going to talk about gold. And there's an obvious equation with gold, but it needs to be said. Gold output is going to be equal to gold input, which is not equal to infinity. Everyone wants more gold. Everyone would love to have all their characters level 95, but that's not the way this game works. So gold income is mainly fixed, but there are a few small ways to optimize it. And wanted to see if you had any advice or tips of ways to kind of optimize the gold income that we get.
Well, I mean, like you said, the gold income per month is relatively fixed. The only differences would be maybe specific events that month that might reward gold. And lately, we've been seeing, I think it's the Alliance War Alliance milestone that we had pretty recently, I think, here, that did give anywhere from like, I don't know, 5 to 12 million gold, depending on if you're whaling or not. And so that's a good additional like alliance wide amount of gold per month, because it seems like that's been happening a couple months now. So I'm going to have to add that into my gold calculator because it might be something more reliable if that is coming back every month.
Yeah.
But you need to be really cautious about what you're spending your gold on, mainly in the supply store. And I think we might be getting into that later on too, because I feel like that's where people are losing their gold, is how much they're spending, whether it's on G uniques, G17, 18, whatever, they're expensive. And if you're spending too much, you're going to lose a lot of your monthly gold, because we do get a fair bit. And actually, we largely have enough to like upgrade 3.5 characters to max per month. But that gets watered down significantly if you start buying a ton of uniques.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can easily spend 2 million gold a day in that store. If
And you're not even leveling anyone up. It's just like supply purchases. It's crazy if you're not careful.
And I'll tell you one other thing, and this is so minor, but like little things, one thing with gold, it's all about like if you can get that extra 10,000 gold, it doesn't seem like much, but if you do that 4 different places every single day for a year, like that's a different economy at that point. So like little things when they had the for the ISO campaign energy, when they used to have that event coordinated assault, like I was in the habit of saving that, but now I've found like sometimes I'll look and I'm capped at 500 and it's like, how many days haven't I, just used this to grind a free node, and there's a small amount of gold in there. So like those things can help a little bit, but I agree with you. For the most part, it's fixed and it's more about managing the output.
Yeah, I mean, everyone says we need more gold, and I guess they could do that, and they have to look at the whole. So I have a gold calculator spreadsheet, and it has every aspect of where your gold comes from, every single game mode, every single avenue of gold, and I assume that Scopely has something like this too, so that when they decide to increase the gold, they have to choose where it's going, like where are you getting it from, and how much is it going to go up by. And one thing that I would like to see in the future maybe is, because we're blitzing a lot and people don't like to blitz, but people also want to be able to grind, maybe add blitz gold rather as per win for blitz. So every time you win a blitz match, you get, I don't know, 1,500 gold or something. And then for those people who are grinding the crap out of blitz, you might walk away with, whatever that is per day. And that's something within your control. If you want to play more, then you can get a little bit more, kind of thing.
I think that's a great piece of advice, because there should be rewards for grinding, but they shouldn't necessarily be game changing. I don't think people should.
No,
Like
and so it would have to be a number that would be, acceptable, but also not too insane. But it's reasonable.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good recommendation. So to your point, it's all about gold output, right? So I have a few kind of statements along those lines, and want to see if you'd agree or disagree and how you want to elaborate. So first, I do hear some people complain about training mat supply, understandably, and wanted to pose the statement: if you want more training mats, spend more gold in the supply store. Do you agree or disagree with that?
That is a true point. I would say it's not a problem that I have personally. I feel that I don't know if a lot of veterans have the training mat problem. I think that that's largely for, I guess, people who aren't veterans, because we're only focused on the new characters. Whereas when you're having to go wide for your roster and you're building up like a ton of different characters, that's when you run into training mat problems. But obviously, it's like a seesaw balance. If you're running low on training mats, that means you're not spending enough gold, and you need to spend gold elsewhere. That's not leveling up, which would be largely the supply store, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and hopefully over time that balances out. If you need more training mats, I don't know, buy that thing in the arena store. I think there's like purple credits in there, or open the arena orbs or whatever.
Yeah, not a ton, but it helps, no question. But yeah, that's kind of how I manage my trading mat, by how much gold I'm spending in the supply store. So, all right. So next question: the main gold economy, and you've touched on this, is based on leveling and store spending.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, you're not really spending gold in significant ways elsewhere, like rank ups. I mean, there's a little bit on like star rank ups, but it doesn't happen all the time, so it's not a ton anymore. like 500k to a 7-star. I mean, a G18 mini costs 200k. So by comparison, that's like 2.5 minis to cost for a 7-star rank up. It's like,
Yeah,
it's nothing.
huge value.
So,
Yep, and
yeah,
I'd say the same with T4s and gearing talk costs a little gold, but those are like
yeah,
automatics. Like those are the best ways you can spend it, and your variable gold is really on these things.
yeah. I mean, if you want to take a character to max level, I think it's in the realm of 20 million gold. That includes level 95 all the way up, plus the gear and the abilities and all that. So, it's quite a bit. Now, we don't need all characters to 95, of course, but just for newer characters that you're wanting to max out, it does cost a lot, unfortunately.
It does. So anything just from an overall like gold spending strategy that you're doing right now, or that you think would help people out there that may be struggling with gold?
I'm very particular actually in my supply store. So I don't buy all of the minis. I buy specific ones. I largely buy Mystic and Mutant and Bio. And I don't actually buy as many skill or tech. And the reason for that is I feel that, at least for my setup, I'm using more of those other minis and I'm willing to spend the gold on that. But I don't really need, at least right now, I don't really need a lot of skill and tech characters, both at G18 or very high level at the moment. And I need, you can't just buy everything. Like you said, you could probably spend 2 million or more a day on 3 different resets from the G18 minis, uniques. I hope that you're not buying G17 minis anymore, just because if you stack 17 and 18 together, you're gonna be bankrupt. You need to stop somewhere. And so that's really drawing the line. You need to draw the line somewhere with what you're spending in there, because it can get out of hand.
Yeah.
So have an idea of what you want and draw the line somewhere, I think.
Okay, and sounds like you're, the T18s, that gear upgrade gives 32% all stats. It's the biggest we've ever seen, and so even outside PV6, that's really important. And sounds like you're just being very deliberate on making sure to buy those for your best characters, the ones you need, instead of just buying everyone you see.
Yeah, well, I kind of focus more on the characters that I'm going to be focusing on, like right now in Dark Dimension 6, or what's coming up, and then I let because I do incursion raids, so I'm still getting 18s from the teal epic orbs, and so I just let that fall as it is as I get them passively, but I don't go out of my way to buy every single origin, otherwise I can go bankrupt. And I won't have gold to level up new characters or secret defenders right now, which I'm focusing on. If you spend too much in the supply store, you will have like no gold left to level your characters. So there's a really important balance there.
Yep. And guys, listen to what Boilon is saying. It's so easy. You want all that gear now, you want to buy it, but you have to plan for the future, and you have to save, or else you'll be broke. There's no question. All right. So wanted to talk through those things, and then to kind of display this point that you've been making here in general, I have a little game for us. So we're going to call this the over-under game. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through a variety of different characters, raid characters, war characters, and then I have a target level that's displayed. And then I want to hear your opinion on if you feel that character should be leveled higher than that or lower than that. Obviously, there's so much nuance to these questions, right? It's just a little fun and a chance to talk through some examples. But in general, that's how this will work here. So you ready to play a little game?
Yeah, no worries. Let's go.
All right. So first character, Nick Fury, level 90. Do you feel he should be higher or lower than that?
I think it depends on if you're planning on taking him to Dark Dimension 6. Do you need to go that high immediately? Probably not. 85, 16, G16. I realize that you don't have any gears in there. It's just the levels. So I don't know if you...
Yep.
I'm going to assume, though, that it might be related to the gear tier, which unlocks at that level. So you're saying 90, G17 maybe. Yeah. I think if you're just using them in the raids, 85, G16 would be sufficient.
Okay.
But a lot of people are going to plan on taking him to Dark Dimension 6 as it sits, but that is quite late. The Legendary Lane is towards the end, so we might have other characters that might be more valid or less expensive as well, because he requires 5 mini sets, I think, so he's quite expensive.
Brutal. All right, so I agree with everything you said. I had said over, and I'll say one thing I did take him to 95 pretty early, and it allowed me to not build the other invaders nearly as high. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
rationale there. But I think he's bigger than he needs to be for me in the raid. So
That is true, and I think that might depend on your red stars as well. So I actually went out of my way to get a 7th red star on him, maybe because I had nothing else to spend them on. But he had a really good rework. His minions hit really hard, actually, so he had a really good rework. And you're right. The minions themselves probably can, in some ways, out DPS some of the other characters because they hit really hard with the rework. He had a really good rework, so it's not bad to go 95 either, especially if you're going to take him to Dark Dimension 6.
Yeah, and yeah, great point on DD6. And my hopes there, and this may be short-sighted, but instead of having him like all 90, let's say, if I took him to 95, I may be able to have the other 4 at level 85 and get the same performance. So overall, I saved gold with that trade-off. But
yeah, there's always going to be some character on the team that kind of performs better than others, which is maybe worth more investment than someone else, for example, on the Invaders team.
Okay. So similar question, Union Jack level 85. What do you think?
I'm going to say under. You probably don't even need it. It's the same team. Actually, it's the Invaders. So you probably don't even need 85. If you're talking about 90, 95 Nick Fury, then you could probably have like a level 80 G15 Union Jack. I mean, it depends on your difficulty that you're running on for raids. I don't know if he's like the carry of the team, so I don't think he needs to be that high. Frankly, I think he's the worst of the 5, but that's just me. Maybe I don't use him the best, but he's not my favorite member of the team, so he probably doesn't even need to be 85.
So I completely agree, Boilon. I think you explained it well. I don't think he's like the least valuable member of the team, although that does seem to be consensus. But his rewinds and there's certain things he does I think are super helpful, but they aren't dependent on his size.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess he's just for me, is the least interesting of the whole team. That's
agreed. All right, we aligned on under. So next tier, Black Cat level 94, over or under?
I mean, I think there's a reason why you have 94, but I will say you should take to 95 because you get a lot of, and I know this from firsthand experience from yesterday, that you get a lot of stats for her unique piece. Actually, an insane amount of stats. So you would need 95 to equip that.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that piece does take 95 to your point. So kind of the theory of, hey, do you take the best characters as big as you can? And I agree with you. I had over there for Black Cat as well. All right, another raid character, because I know you're big into raids, so try to throw some of those in. Agent Venom, level 85.
To be honest, I think that's about where I would take him. So I don't know if I can say over or under. My Agent Venom is actually, it might be 90, but you could probably leave them at 85. That's fine too. Some people were thinking about taking him to Dark Dimension 6. I don't know if people are still thinking about it. He was on some lists for a time. I think because he was bio, he had good damage, but yeah. So if you are, I guess you're taking him to 95, but he's not on my list anymore. So I think there is sufficient, but you could do a little bit more he's the main damage on the team. So for raids, if you're doing those higher level raids, you probably will need that, but 85 is probably an average range where that's okay.
Okay, well, and I tried to put these kind of where I thought, so it should be a tough question. But I agree with what you said. I think, it may be important to have Captain America and Peggy Carter. They need to be big as well, especially for Crucible. But he's the main damager, and I think he's where you get that value from a little extra power.
Yeah, I think he's like my third. I would kind of focus on Cap and Peggy and Captain Carter, and then Agent Venom third for me. And depending on how much you're using him in Crucible as well with that raid room, because he can really make a difference sometimes if he is a little bit higher. But just depends on your, again, gold, if you have it or not.
That's the underline behind all these. How much gold do you have, right? So, all right, Nova, level 90.
That's an interesting one for me because I don't know. Nova's impact was not as apparent to me as it was, say, Red Hulk. When Red Hulk came out, everyone agreed this guy's goddamn amazing. Nova's not bad, but he's like, he's good, but he's not knocking it out of the park for me.
Yep.
He's good in his team. Standalone, he's okay. So I guess it depends. I would even say 85 is okay, but he's most likely going to Dark Dimension 6 with most of us because he's a new character. He's a new legendary. His stats are good. So for that reason, it's probably, you probably have over on there, but I think that he's just a middle of the road legendary for me.
Well, I'm starting to worry maybe you've seen these answers here, but just kidding. No, I didn't
Just
see
because
them,
of Dark Dimension 6, that's the only reason why I'm saying that most people will take him to 95. But, as far as my enjoyment of the character and what he does, I think he's kind of middle of the road. You could have him less if you want to.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I did say over. I do have him T18 already. I thought when they came out, they were going to be the next Darkhold 2.0. And I'll say I've been disappointed in them and wish I hadn't put so many resources there. But do think with the Black Cat trials, he helped. And then to your point, I think he's going to be great for DD6. So,
yeah.
All right.
I was looking forward to this one.
You knew I'd have it. All right. And hopefully it's not offensive with my proposed level there. But Swarm level 85 over or under.
So it just depends on if you're building him at all. Now, obviously, he doesn't even need to be built. If you don't want to, there's a couple of things here, right? So I used him in the Black Hat trial. Everyone can go and check the video if you want, or maybe they've already seen it, where I used Swarm in my trials. I did not level nowhere. I have all 4 of the other characters at 1. I had Nova and Swarm, and they carried my trial through difficulty 7. Swarm is the best character outside of Spidey on the Infestation team, because Swarm's ultimate does not have to be within war defense, and he'll follow up with the special. So he'll do his ultimate and then follow up with the special, and then if he's got a striker ISO, he does a crazy amount of damage on a single target. Now, this is a bit of I'm going out on a tangent here now, because you realize that's beyond what you just asked me. However,
you're right ahead.
I think he's a great character. So do you need to take him to 95? No. But if you are going to build him or his team, he's the best member, and so he should be as high as he can. So yeah. I'm going to say over, but I know that's not. I'm not saying everyone should do that. And that's what people don't get, because whenever I did videos regarding Swarm, I wasn't saying everyone should go do this. I said that if you want to do it, he's good, but it's not for everyone.
No, but I think that's great. And I apologies for this, but I did say under. I have not built him, but I think you've actually done a good job of showing some creative uses for him, and he is pretty powerful after that rework. And then I remember in the Black Hat trial, that node that had 2 swarms, they were getting like speed, just mechanics I didn't understand since I haven't used him very well. But I think he does some interesting things I'm maybe not aware about. So,
well, that's the funny thing, is because there's some characters that are so just nobody will touch, and then when you actually fight them post rework or anything like that, nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, because he flips negative stats effects to positive stats effects, so that's probably something that people don't remember. And he has this charge mechanic, I guess, where he starts damaging himself. However, and people thought that was the biggest issue, but he actually heals himself on turn, which is new from the rework. So the amount of healing that he gives himself on his turn is actually enough to counter that damage that he takes from not having charges.
Okay. See, I did not know that.
So if Doc Ock gets a rework, who gives them charges back, of course, that was the original intent of that team. I'm really looking forward to using him more in the future. So fingers crossed on that.
Well, good. And that'd be a hell of an investment for you, Ben, no question. All right. We talked about him a little bit, so you probably know my answer here. But Quicksilver, level 85.
Yeah, probably over.
Over. We'll keep that one quick. We've talked about it. Completely agree. I have my title backwards. I think he's one of the most underrated characters in the game. He just amazing.
Yeah.
All right. This one's a tough one, bud.
It is a tough one. You know what? A lot of people use Ravager Stitcher in Dark Dimension, Dimension 5 for Dormammu, actually. So I've seen a lot of G16 Stitchers, and even some people who are considering G18, honestly, because I think he only requires 1 tech set.
Yep, I think you're right. And not many tech characters.
Overall value, though, not good. However, he's got some, I guess, meme kind of use, because his basic. If you kill somebody with his basic, they can't revive. So I've seen a lot of meme videos out there that used to happen after they got the rework of one-shotting people with Ravager Stitcher basic, because it hits so hard. And if you kill them with the striker attack, that also counts, I think, as not reviving too. So they'd give a striker to Stitcher and then maximize his basic damage. There's some meme potential, but otherwise you probably don't need to.
So I'm impressed. You're talking nuanced kit dynamics on characters that I don't know these things.
Yeah.
So good for you. So over under level 10. Knowing what you know now, would you still build him?
No. But
okay, I'd agree. He did have, I think, one of the better characters for the minion section on the Archangel trial as well.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people use
those are going
Ravagers, I
away.
think, because I used a mixture of Ravagers and Hand, actually. There's 2 Hand characters as a result of the Underworld rework for Nobu. The Hand Archer and Hand Blade Master got a rework. So I used those 2 plus 3 Ravagers.
Makes sense. All right, Vol, another raid character, level 90.
Probably, yeah. I think that even like once Bifrost finishes, I think Vol is still going to be a very good standalone character. So probably 95. Yep.
I would agree. Scopely original.
Yeah.
Vol's powers unbelievable. Like she just punches people out. So
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think worth maxing Vol as quickly as someone can. Some other priorities too, but I agree with over. All right, another character from the same team, same target, Team Loki, level 90.
Under. I think that I don't know if I'm at 85 or 90, but I regret going that high that I didn't need to. And from what I understand, that even at higher difficulties, Bifrost knocks it out of the park, even at like, I don't know, 1.4 and 1.5. So you probably don't even need them that high. I've heard reports of, being able to squeeze by like level 80, honestly, because it's the newest raid team. They just overcompensated this team a lot with their raid mechanics. So you probably don't need to go that high. And if you're not considering Dark Dimension, which I don't think people are for him, you don't need to go that high.
I would agree. I think under is appropriate. And, one thing I asked myself, because again, gold is a commodity, right? Like it's very limited. And so it's not just like what's the best characters, because Team Loki's very good. He surprised me. He's a lot better member of that team than I thought. But it's what characters actually get value from these upgrades, which isn't always the same as the best character. And so that's where I think, the most value he brings isn't from things that change when you put more levels on them.
He's a very kit-based character. Now, some support characters can really knock it out of the park. Some of them have like, big damage, but I don't think he really does. And so you don't really need to take advantage of that as such for Team Loki specifically. But a character like Sylvie, I would maybe take to like, maybe 90. I think she has more damage potential than Team Loki, for example.
I completely agree. I think after Vol, Sylvie's probably the next one on that team to go big on. Okay, we're getting close here. So I think this is the last character. New team. I'd say maybe a slightly controversial team. And a lot of people, it sounds like, might skip them. But the Thing, level 75. Where are you at?
I really don't like their new reworks, the Thing and Agent Cold. Actually, if I hardly call it a rework. It was just, I don't know. The attacks are basically the same. They added a couple of debuffs to Thing's ultimate, I think, within War. It was kind of lazy, I think, and I was really disappointed. I don't like this team. I don't like New Avengers. 75, that's geared to your, what level? Is that 13 or 14?
14.
That's 14? Okay, you know what? I'm going to keep it there. So I'm not going to say under. That's exactly where I would take him, especially for the trials.
Okay, fair enough. That wasn't an option, but we'll let you cheat on that one. So I said over. I agree with what you're saying. I do like to try and go big on the trials, so I'm probably a little biased on this one. And Boilon, I'm sure I'm going to be wrong. I'm definitely in a vacuum with this opinion, but not because of the kits, but because of Scopely patterns. I actually think this team's going to be better than people are saying. And that's not based on much. So
I mean,
I back that up, but I'm convinced they will be better than people are saying.
They could be, but at the end of the day, it's a war team, and I don't know why. I mean, I guess you have to ask yourself, what are you building for then? Because there's only so many game modes, right? There's Raids, War, and Crucible, and I did a video on this before, and I feel like you can only really, as a free-to-play player, you can only focus on like 1.5 modes, which is how much gold you realistically have available to invest in these teams properly. So when I want to invest in a team, I want to invest in them properly. I want to finish it. I want to do a full team. I don't want to half-ass it. And so for that reason, I think that I'm probably just going to take New Avengers to G14 across the board, which would be sufficient maybe for like difficulty 7. And I'd be happy with that, because I actually did the exact same thing for Black Cat, and I walked away with a 5-star Black Cat.
Oh, wow.
So I had no investment in the other Nowhere characters, and I still got a 5-star Black Cat, and I'm happy with that. So that I'm going to be doing something similar for this one.
That makes a lot of sense, and you'll save some valuable resources for that next meta team, right? To be able to use there instead. All right, I think this is the last over under here. So this video, 1,500 views, over or under. How powerful is Boilon?
Well, I'm going to try to get you a little bit over, but if I can't, then don't blame me. But I will. I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do to get that number up.
No, just kidding. Did this one for fun. I'll say I've had one video that's been over 2,000 views. Most of mine are in the hundreds range, but your name carries a lot of weight, so I'm excited to see. And this was kind of my guess or target here. So.
And honestly, to be honest, like from my experience on YouTube, a lot of it can just be luck. It's weird how YouTube operates and things like that. That it can just, sometimes the video gets picked. You've probably heard of the algorithm, and the YouTube algorithm is a powerful thing. And sometimes just videos pop, and sometimes they don't. Even I have my good days and my bad days. So,
yep. Absolutely. So, of course, the optimist in me hopes for over here, but we will see. So, well, that's really it for the, we'll call that a game there, but a good excuse to talk through some of those characters. And man, had an absolute blast talking about this. I think you bring a lot of good insight into gold. I will link Boilon's channel below. If you're watching this, you're probably familiar with it, but just in case, check out his videos. He really has a great understanding of gold economy. And that's something so important, in the player's voice. There was a poll, and gold was the #1 concern for most players for resources. So any final words you have or anything else you want to say?
Just be very careful with how you spend your gold, how high you take. And it was really a good game because it's really, you really need to think about how high you're taking a character, a team, because if you go too far, you're not going to have those resources for someone else that you might want later on. And so usually before I start investing, I have an idea of how far I want to take them because I don't want to regret it later.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's like the target, that little game we played. I do that. I try and have a target for each character for that exact same reason. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, this was a great time. Really appreciate you joining. I do want to say we talked about the video at the start. Boilon spent about an hour with me yesterday trying to help me with the technology and get my things working. So really sorry wasn't able to deliver his video too, but just a huge thank you, Boilon. That was very nice of you, and I hate I wasted your time, but you were great about it. So
no, not at all. Thanks for having me on, and hopefully we can do this again sometime. My mouth's a bit dry here. 45.
Yeah, this was a longer one, but I think it was good. So, as always, I give you my word that this is the best advice I have. All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
See you guys.